Leah was what most people would call successful. At 26, she worked as an investment manager at one of the top firms in the city. She had a decent apartment, rented, but still a good place, and enough savings to finally buy her own home soon. No mortgage, no loans, just the way she wanted it. Everything was going according to plan until that phone call from Aunt Linda changed everything. "Leah, honey, are you coming for Thanksgiving this year?" Her warm voice brought a smile to Leah's face. Aunt Linda had been more of a mother to her than her actual mother ever was. "Of course, I wouldn't miss it," Leah replied, already looking forward to her famous apple pie. What she didn't expect was who else would be there. She should probably explain why her aunt's call meant so much to her. Leah hadn't spoken to her parents or her older sister, Mabel, in 8 years, not since the day she graduated high school. She had just received her acceptance letter to college with a partial scholarship for investment management. She was over the moon. It was everything she had worked for. She rushed home to tell her parents, expecting them to be proud. Instead, she got the conversation that would tear their family apart. "We can't pay for your college, Leah," her mother said, not even looking up from her magazine. "Your sister's getting married soon, and we need all our savings for her wedding." "But what about Grandma's money?" Leah's voice shook as she spoke. "She left it specifically for my education. You promised her." Her father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Things change, honey. Mabel's wedding is more important right now. You'll figure something out." That was when everything Leah had been holding back for years came pouring out. More important? Just like everything else about Mabel has always been more important. The argument that followed was ugly. Years of feeling second best exploded into accusations and tears. That night, she packed her bags and went to the only person who had ever treated her fairly, Aunt Linda. Aunt Linda took her in without hesitation. What Leah didn't know then was that her aunt had been saving money for her own son's education, but he had died in a car accident a few years before. She offered that money to Leah. Leah only accepted on the condition that she would pay back every penny once she graduated and got a job. Those college years were tough. She worked part-time at a cafe while maintaining her grades and scholarship. But she made it through, landed a job at a prestigious investment firm, and 2 years later, she paid back every cent to Aunt Linda. Life was good. She had her independence, her career was thriving, and she had carefully avoided any contact with her family. Until that Thanksgiving invitation. She almost dropped the pumpkin pie she was carrying when she walked into Aunt Linda's house that Thanksgiving. There they were, her parents, her sister Mabel, and Mabel's 2 kids, ages 6 and 3, all sitting in the living room like they belonged there. 8 years of carefully avoiding them, gone in an instant. Aunt Linda rushed to help her with the pie, her eyes apologetic. "I didn't know they were coming. They just showed up." Leah stood frozen in the doorway, her heart pounding. Her mother looked older, with more gray in her hair than Leah remembered. Her father had gained weight. Mabel, well, she still looked like the golden child, even with 2 kids hanging off her arms. "I need some air," Leah managed to say, turning around and heading straight for the back porch. The November air was cold, but she barely felt it. Her hands were shaking as she gripped the railing. "Leah," her mother's voice behind her made her stiffen. "Can we talk?" 8 years of silence, and now she wanted to talk. Leah didn't turn around. "Why are you even here?" She heard footsteps on the wooden boards as her mother came to stand beside her. "Because we were wrong," her mother said quietly. "Your father and we've spent years feeling guilty about what we did. We want to make things right. Then why didn't you call? Write? Email? Anything?" The words came out sharper than Leah intended. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "Because we were ashamed. So ashamed. We kept telling ourselves we'd reach out, but the more time passed, the harder it became. When we heard you'd be here for Thanksgiving, we knew it might be our only chance to see you face to face. To tell you how sorry we are for everything." Leah stood there, her mind racing. Part of her wanted to scream at her mother, to list every single time they had made her feel less important than Mabel. Another part noticed how tired her mother looked, how her hands trembled as she spoke. "I need time to think," Leah finally said. It's a lot." "Of course." Her mother nodded quickly. "Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Leah sat quietly in a corner of Aunt Linda's living room, pushing turkey around her plate and avoiding eye contact. True to their word, her parents and Mabel didn't push. They chatted with other relatives, played with the kids, helped with dishes, all while shooting occasional guilty glances her way. Leah watched them when they weren't looking. Her mom helping Aunt Linda in the kitchen, her dad entertaining Mabel's kids, and Mabel herself looking somehow both confident and uncertain. They were trying to give her space, but their presence filled every corner of the house. For 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, she couldn't think about anything else. Every morning, she'd wake up and replay that conversation with her mom on Aunt Linda's porch. Every night, she'd lie awake wondering if she was making the right decision by even considering forgiveness. One evening, she sat in her apartment, staring at her phone. Her mom's number was still saved there. She had never deleted it, though she couldn't explain why. Maybe some part of her had always known this day would come. Her finger hovered over the call button for what felt like hours. Finally, she took a deep breath and pressed it. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3. Leah. Her mom's voice was cautious and hopeful. "Hi, Mom," Leah said, her voice cracking a little. "I've been thinking about what you said at Thanksgiving. I think I'd like to try." Slowly, the words left her mouth. They felt strange, unfamiliar, but also right. Maybe we could start over. That was how she found herself standing outside her childhood home a week later, clutching a bag of carefully chosen gifts. Nothing expensive, just thoughtful items she had picked up. A scarf for her mom, a book her dad had mentioned wanting years ago, and some educational toys for Mabel's kids. The house looked smaller than she remembered and definitely more worn. The paint was peeling in places, and the garden her mom used to tend so meticulously was overgrown. Before she could ring the doorbell, the door flew open. Her mom stood there, looking nervous but happy. "You came." "I came," Leah nodded, stepping inside. The interior was just as telling as the exterior. The furniture was the same from 8 years ago, but now showing obvious wear. The walls needed a fresh coat of paint, and the carpet was threadbare in places. Her dad emerged from the kitchen, looking uncertain. Mabel was there too, her kids hiding behind her legs. Leah handed out the gifts, watching their faces as they opened them. Her mom's eyes welled up when she saw the scarf, and her dad actually smiled at the book. Over dinner, her mom had made Leah's favorite lasagna from childhood. That night, the truth about their lives emerged. Mabel's marriage had ended badly 2 years ago, forcing her to move back home with the kids. Her mom's health problems had reduced her to part-time work at the library, and her dad had been forced to take a lower-paying position after his company downsized. "How about you, Leah?" Mabel asked carefully, pushing her food around her plate. "How's work?" "Good," Leah replied, trying to keep her tone neutral. "I'm at Morton and Associates now. It's a large investment firm downtown." The rest of the evening continued like that. Careful conversations, avoided topics, and an underlying tension that nobody wanted to acknowledge. They were all trying so hard to be normal that it felt anything but. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Mabel started showing up at Leah's office during lunch breaks, usually with 2 cups of coffee from the shop downstairs. They would sit in the building's courtyard, catching up on 8 years of missed conversations. Mabel told her about her failed marriage, how her ex-husband had turned out to be terrible with money and even worse with commitment. As Christmas approached, Leah found herself actually looking forward to family celebrations. But first, she had an important stop to make. "A coffee maker?" Aunt Linda laughed as she unwrapped her gift. "Are you trying to tell me something about my instant coffee?" "Maybe," Leah grinned, hugging her tight. "Thank you for everything, Aunt Linda. For being there when I needed you most." Aunt Linda held her at arm's length, studying her face. "Are you happy, sweetie, with how things are going with your family?" "I think I am," Leah answered, surprising herself with how true it felt. "It's different now. Better." Christmas at her parents' house was nothing like the tense dinner from her first visit. Her mom had decorated every inch of the place, and her dad was actually singing carols as he helped in the kitchen. Mabel's kids, Emily and Jack, had finally warmed up to Leah, especially after seeing their presents. A science kit for Emily and a toy dinosaur collection for Jack. "Leah," they squealed, climbing all over her. "Can you help us build the volcano?" Watching them play with their new toys, Leah realized how much she had missed having a family. Even her mom and dad seemed more relaxed, laughing and joking like they used to when she was little. Months passed, and they fell into a comfortable rhythm. Sunday dinners became a regular thing. Mabel and Leah had their coffee dates. Then came the spring break trip. She hadn't planned it, really. She had just overheard her mom saying how the kids had never seen the ocean. "Let's go," she said impulsively. "Next week. I'll book everything." That trip was magical. Watching Emily and Jack's faces when they first saw the ocean, hearing their squeals as they jumped over waves, building sandcastles with their dad like she used to as a kid. It was worth every penny. After the trip, things felt even more natural, which was why Leah wasn't entirely surprised when her mom and dad asked to talk to her one evening after dinner. "The plumbing in the house," her dad started, looking uncomfortable. "It's pretty bad. We've been putting off repairs, but—" "We hate to ask," her mom jumped in, her voice hesitant, "but we could really use some help." Leah wrote them a check right there. It wasn't a small amount, but seeing their relief made it worth it. After that, there were other requests. Nothing unreasonable. A new water heater when the old one died, help with Mabel's kids' school supplies, small things that family helps each other with. It was during a regular Sunday dinner when Mom dropped the bomb. She had been quieter than usual throughout the meal, pushing her food around her plate instead of eating. Finally, as Dad was serving dessert, she spoke up. "I lost my job," she said, her voice cracking. "They're cutting positions at the library, and mine's one of them. I don't know what we're going to do, the medical bills, the house payments." Leah watched her mother's hands trembling as she held her coffee cup, saw the worry lines deepening on Dad's face. They looked old, suddenly vulnerable. Before she knew what she was saying, the words were out of her mouth. "I can help," she heard herself say. "I can afford $1,500 a month. It's not a problem." The relief on their faces was immediate and overwhelming. Mom started crying again, but this time from happiness. Dad got up and hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. And so began their new normal. Every month, like clockwork, Leah transferred the money to their account. They never asked for more than they had agreed upon, though occasionally they would mention needing something specific. New winter boots for Jack, or a replacement for their ancient microwave. Mabel and Leah grew even closer during this time. When Leah had to travel for work, she started bringing Mabel along whenever she could. Nothing too extravagant. A weekend in Chicago, 3 days in Boston, a quick trip to Miami. Just sisters making up for lost time. Life fell into a comfortable pattern. Sunday dinners, monthly transfers, occasional shopping trips with Mom, helping Mabel's kids with their homework. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like family should feel. Then came the call that would change everything. "Leah," Mrs. Peterson, her landlord, sounded apologetic. "I need to talk to you about the apartment." Leah's stomach dropped. "My grandson is graduating from college in a few months. He'll be working in the city, and well, I promised him the apartment." "Oh," Leah said, looking around at the space she had called home for so long. The wall she had painted pale blue on a whim. The window seat where she loved to read on rainy days. "I'm so sorry," Mrs. Peterson said. "You've been a wonderful tenant. I'll give you plenty of time to find something else, of course." After hanging up, Leah sat in her favorite spot by the window thinking. She had been saving diligently all these years. Even with helping her family, her investment portfolio was doing well. Maybe this wasn't a setback at all. Maybe it was the universe giving her a push. She spent the next few weeks meeting with Sarah, her realtor, viewing apartments during her lunch breaks and after work. She had a clear vision of what she wanted, something modern, close to the office with enough space for a home office. She was particularly excited about a corner unit in a new building just 3 blocks from work. She could already picture herself there, drinking coffee on the balcony, hosting dinner parties in the open-concept kitchen. But she kept it all to herself, wanting to surprise her family with the news once everything was finalized. "Sorry, Mom, I can't make it this Sunday," she said during their weekly call. "We've got some problems at work." She was going through paint samples one evening when Aunt Linda called. Her voice was tight, controlled. "Leah, can you come over? We need to talk. It's important." Leah found her pacing in the kitchen, looking more agitated than she had ever seen her. Aunt Linda barely waited for her to sit down before speaking. "I heard something today," she began, her hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. "Something you need to know." Leah frowned. "What is it?" "Macy and Karen were at the book club," Aunt Linda continued. "They ran into your parents and Mabel at the grocery store last week. Apparently, after you started helping them financially, your family has been talking about you a lot." Leah felt something cold settle in her chest. "What do you mean talking?" "They've been calling you their personal ATM behind your back," she said bluntly. making jokes about how they finally found a use for your fancy job. Mabel's been telling people how she just has to mention wanting to go somewhere, and you'll pay for the whole trip. The room seemed to tilt sideways. That can't be right. There's more. Aunt Linda's voice was gentle now. Your mother has been bragging about how she doesn't really need to find another job because Leah's good for the money. They've been laughing about it, Leah, making fun of how eager you are to help them. Leah sat there, feeling like she had been punched in the gut. Part of her wanted to deny it, to defend them. But she knew Aunt Linda would never make this up. And suddenly, little things started clicking into place. The way they changed the subject whenever her job came up, how the requests for help had become more frequent, the calculating looks she sometimes caught them exchanging. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," Aunt Linda said softly, reaching for her hand. "I debated whether to tell you, but you deserve to know." Leah sat there for a long time, thinking about the past year. All those family dinners, the trips with Mabel, the monthly transfers, the grateful tears in Mom's eyes when she helped with bills. Had it all been an act? Then slowly, an idea started forming. 2 days later, Leah stood outside her parents' house with 2 packed suitcases, having spent the morning moving all her furniture to Aunt Linda's garage. She had rehearsed this moment, planned every detail. Taking a deep breath, she rang the doorbell. Her mother opened the door, surprise written all over her face. "Leah, what are you doing here? What's with the suitcases?" Her father and Mabel appeared behind her, equally confused. "Perfect." Leah let her lower lip tremble, blinking rapidly as if holding back tears. "I got fired," she choked out. "There were budget cuts and they found some mistakes in my work. They're making me pay back bonuses. I can't afford my apartment anymore. I was hoping maybe I could stay here, just for a few months, until I get back on my feet." The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before her mother's concerned expression transformed into something ugly and unfamiliar. "Does this mean you won't be sending us the monthly money anymore?" she demanded, all pretense of sympathy gone from her voice. Leah felt her heart crack a little, even though she had expected this. "No, Mom. I won't have any extra money for a while." Mabel stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. "What about our Europe trip next month? The one you promised to take me on?" Leah's hands were shaking, but she forced herself to maintain the act. She simply shook her head, looking at the floor. That was when all hell broke loose. "You stupid, irresponsible girl," her mother screeched, making Leah flinch. "How could you let this happen? What kind of investment manager gets fired?" Her father joined in, his face red with rage. "We should have known you'd screw this up, just like you screw up everything else. You can't stay here." Mabel spat, grabbing Leah's suitcases. "There's no room, and I'm not sharing my space with a failure." Leah watched in stunned silence as her sister dragged her luggage to the front porch and dumped it outside like trash. These were the same people who had hugged her at Christmas, who had cried grateful tears when she helped them, who had claimed to be so sorry for the past. "We don't need you here without your money," her mother sneered. "You'll never get another decent job after being fired like this. We're not supporting a deadbeat." Leah stood there, taking it all in. The masks had finally fallen, revealing the ugly truth beneath. Every Sunday dinner, every family moment, every reconciliation, it had all been a calculated performance. Aunt Linda had been right. Looking at them now, her mother's twisted expression, her father's red face, Mabel's contemptuous sneer, Leah felt oddly calm. Something inside her that had been hanging by a thread finally snapped clean. Without a word, she turned and walked to her suitcases. Behind her, their voices rose in a chorus of insults. "Leech, ungrateful brat, don't come crawling back." She wheeled her suitcases down the driveway in silence, their shouts following her like angry wasps. The neighbors were peeking through their windows now, but she couldn't bring herself to care. 20 minutes later, she was back at Aunt Linda's house. Her aunt took one look at Leah's face and opened her arms. Leah fell into them, finally letting the tears come. "They showed their true colors, didn't they?" Aunt Linda whispered, stroking her hair. Leah managed a weak smile, then pulled out her phone. First, she opened her banking app and canceled the monthly transfer to her mother's account. Then, she pulled up the travel website where she had booked Mabel's dream European vacation. 2 clicks, and both the hotel reservation and flight tickets were canceled. The 2 weeks Leah spent at Aunt Linda's felt like a cocoon, a safe space to process everything that had happened. During that time, her realtor called with exciting news. Remember that corner unit you loved? The sellers accepted your offer. Everything moved quickly after that. Paperwork, inspections, final walkthroughs. It all became a blur of signatures and meetings. Before she knew it, Leah was standing in her very own apartment, holding the keys in her trembling hands. Aunt Linda helped her move everything in from the garage. They spent a weekend arranging furniture, hanging artwork, and making the space truly hers. She even insisted on helping Leah pick out new curtains for the floor-to-ceiling windows. That evening, after Aunt Linda left, Leah did something impulsive. She took a photo of herself in her new living room, the city lights twinkling behind her through the massive windows. She posted it on social media with the caption, "Dreams do come true. Finally a homeowner. No mortgage loans, just years of hard work paying off." She knew what she was doing. She knew they'd see it. Sure enough, her phone rang less than 2 hours later. Her mother's number flashed on the screen. Leah took a deep breath and answered. "What is this photo about?" her mother demanded. "What apartment? I thought you were fired." Leah settled into her new armchair, feeling surprisingly calm. "Actually, Mom, I wasn't fired. I'm still employed, still successful. And now I'm a homeowner too." Silence. "Then what?" "I just needed to test something," Leah said smoothly. "Test something?" Her mother's voice rose an octave. Leah could hear her father and Mabel in the background. "Yes," Leah said. "I wanted to see if you actually cared about me, or just my money. I guess I got my answer when you threw my suitcases out on the porch and called me a leech." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then, chaos erupted on the other end of the line. Her father was cursing. Mabel was screeching something about deception. Her mother's voice turned sickeningly sweet. "Sweetheart, we were just shocked and worried about you. Of course, we care about you. We can move past this little joke of yours. Everything can go back to normal." Leah actually laughed out loud. "Normal? You mean where I pay for everything while you mock me behind my back? Don't worry about a leech. You can pay your own bills. Oh, and Mabel? I canceled your tickets to Europe. I think I'll go by myself instead. Goodbye." She hung up and immediately blocked their numbers. Then, she blocked them on all social media. It felt like setting down a heavy weight she had been carrying for too long. They tried calling from different numbers. They sent emails. They even showed up at her office building a few days later. But she had already warned security. The sight of them being turned away by the guards should have hurt. But all she felt was relief. That weekend, Aunt Linda came over for dinner in Leah's new home. She had cooked her aunt's favorite lasagna, and they sat on the balcony, watching the sunset. "Are you okay?" Aunt Linda asked, refilling their wine glasses. Leah smiled. "I have everything I need right here," she said, raising her glass. "A home of my own, a job I love, and the only family member who ever truly mattered." Aunt Linda clinked her glass against Leah's, and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights come alive below them. Sometimes, Leah realized, the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. And sometimes, the hardest lessons lead to the most beautiful beginnings.